Hey everyone, welcome back to the Talk of the Town podcast. I'm your host, Andy Burrows, and as you can see or hear, I'm joined by my illustrious co-host, who for some reason has got a Southampton background, just because he knows I was cheering on the mighty, or not so mighty, Leeds United yesterday. Dunstable Town Vice Chairman, Matty Carrington. Matty, how are you, sir?
Do you know what? I'm feeling good, mate. Come on, you mighty saints.
Oh, Jesus. God, mine, Tottenham, rubbish. Leeds, rubbish. Dunstable finished 13th. Well, I'm not having much luck at the minute. But, Matty, we are back with another Euro 2024 show. But obviously, the Euros kick off in a couple of weeks. England got a great chance with this squad of players that are going to the Euros. Me and you are back now today, though, to pick our all-time England 11. Matty,
Yeah,
this is not going to be easy. I mean, depends when you were born, I suppose, and who you pick on your 11. I've shared my 11 with a few people, and like some people are, oh, yeah, really good. But then what about so and so? Effectively,
yeah.
I could have just picked the whole of the 66 team because they won the World Cup. So
Would have been the
effectively,
shortest podcast we've done so
I
far.
mean, it would be, yeah. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. It would have been like the best 11, but yeah, it's so varied. It took me ages. I've got like a whole book here, and I wrote down all my notes and everything. But yeah, let's take a look at our 11s, Matty. Let's start off with you, my friend. Obviously, this is who you have gone for, Matt. You've gone for Gordon Banks in goal. So
Mhm.
now you're gonna have to help me out here because some Phil Neal at right back. Is that right?
Yeah, Phil Neal. Yeah.
Okay. Bobby Moore, Billy Wright. Ain't got a clue who he is. Sorry, lads. Ashley Cole, Stanley Matthews, Paul Gascoigne, Bobby Charlton, John Barnes on the left. One person that doesn't get loads of recognition for England.
Mm,
Michael Owen and Gary Lineker
yeah.
up front. Matty, talk me through this 11, bud.
Right. So yeah, I was I'm in an R in between Shilton and Banksy in sticks. But I mean, the main reason I went for Banksy is basically, first he's a World Cup winner. Uh, you know, obviously I wasn't about when he was playing, but seeing that save that he made against Pele, which Pele's quoted as being the greatest save ever. The bottom line is he should have had a longer career, but for
Hmm.
the fact obviously he had I think it was a motorcycle accident and obviously was registered blind in one eye, I believe. But yeah, probably the greatest England goalkeeper we've ever
35 clean
produced.
sheets for England as well.
Yeah.
Named FIFA Keeper of the Year 6 years running from
Mhm.
1966. I mean, wow.
Yeah, it's not bad, is it? So
It's all right.
then at left back, I've gone for Ashley Cole. I know we had a conversation the other day about not many options at the minute. What I'd do to have an Ashley Cole at left back. He's probably played for two of the best modern teams that I've seen recently. Obviously the Chelsea team and the Invincibles for Arsenal. Then I've gone for a bit of a local choice, for a bit of a nepotism choice on my behalf. Phil Neal, obviously former Northampton Town and obviously Liverpool player. He's one of the most successful English players of all time. Basically, he won it all during the 70s and 80s, including four European Cups, eight league titles. He won't make many England teams, but for me, ever present in probably the greatest Liverpool teams that has been. So for me, he makes that choice.
Interesting.
Then moving on
Better
to,
than Gary Neville.
I think so. Yeah, obviously I
Carl
know Gary
Walker.
Neville. I suppose it's, if I was a Man United fan, I'd probably say no, but I'm not. So arseholes to it. And then at the centre backs, obviously more. What more can you say?
Yeah, I
Honestly,
think if he isn't in your England team in your all-time great, so you don't have to be born to know that Bobby Moore is the greatest centre back this country, if
yeah,
not the world, has ever seen.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, going on to the other centre back partner, and obviously you could have had a lot of players in there. Tony Adams, John Terry. There's some really quality players. But Billy Wright, apparently the first real superstar of the English game. First international player to get 100 caps, played in arguably the best Wolves team in the 50s. And again, would have been even better, would have had even more success, but for the Second World War, because obviously he started his career in 39. I say he won't appear in many people's top tips because, again, as we've said previously, it wasn't people's era, so people remember the likes of the 80s and 90s teams. Then on the right, Stanley Matthews. Again, one of the first big superstars out there, first Ballon d'Or winner.
Hey, do you know
Played
when
in
he
some
won the Ballon d'Or at age 41?
I know it's crazy.
That's
Isn't it?
crazy,
Played
isn't
into
it?
his 50s. I mean, played professional football into his 50s, mate.
Youngest player to ever score on his debut for England as well, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah. How do you play football till you're 50? There's
mate.
still hope for
I
you
just come
yet, mate. You
upstairs.
might want to go and have a word with Steve. You might get a game in the sticks in the old in starting out
Mate,
for
I just
Dunstable.
walked up the stairs to come and record this, and I was puffing and wheezing. So and yeah, obviously you said previously about John Barnes not making many teams, but he's again, it might be nepotism on my part because obviously I remember him playing late on in his Liverpool career, but I just remember how fantastic he was. Yeah,
Scored that great goal
obviously
against Brazil.
100%. That's what I was going to
Yeah.
mention.
Why
Yeah.
do you think he didn't play for England? Why do you think? What was it about John Barnes, Matt? Because I've listened to many interviews with him over the years. I've seen him on TV. Heard him on radio, and they always ask him about his England career. Is it kind
Mm,
of like it's not? He's not in the same category as say like a Matt Letizia who got what one cap for England B or something like that. I think
mm.
they played a friendly at QPR before one of the World Cups or something. What do you think it was about John Barnes? Because we said on the previous episode when Mel was on with us left side of midfield or that side of the pitch, England have always struggled. Well,
Mm.
John Barnes was probably one of the greatest left footers that we've ever seen in this country and not overlooked by England, but not utilised as much as he could be. Why do you think that was?
I think he's a player outside his time. Obviously, he was in the mid 80s to late 80s, early 90s, and yeah, the pace the bloke had was just electric. And as you say, that goal against Brazil was just insane. Without being funny, in my opinion, he makes this team just for his appearance and world of motion. But just saying, but no, I think because he had a very different style to the way the England team played at the time. I think that's the reason why he didn't make as many appearances in that team. Then in the centre midfield, I've gone for, as you say, Gazza and Charlton. Gazza, probably the most naturally gifted players to ever play for England. Yeah, I remember, how old was I? 12 years old, seeing his goal against Scotland, thinking, wow. And then literally weeks after, people trying to recreate it and to varying degrees as unsuccess on the playing fields at school afterwards. But I did write this down. It makes me think. I distinctly remember in '98 how he didn't make the team, and people were absolutely
Glenn Hoddle
annoyed and
left him out, didn't he?
devastated.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if we
What
had
if?
him in the centre midfield, what would have happened with the likes of Owen and Beckham and all that around him. It's one of those, what if stories for
I
me.
mean, what's the reason why Hoddle left him out? I can't quite remember because he was at the training camp. He made the
Yeah,
provisional
he was at the
squad.
training camps, but unfortunately, he's obviously had these difficulties through his life, and he wasn't at that fitness stage, and he's kind of one of these that what Gaz would turn up. Would it be
Mm.
the one that played against Scotland and absolutely played him off the park, or others are ones that he would try and fanny around
What a
for the
difference,
whole
though,
time?
Matt. 96 euros. 2 years later,
Yeah.
arguably our best. He's in all of our best. He's in mine. I can tell you that
Mm-hmm.
now. One of our best ever players. 2 years
Yeah.
later, not in the England squad. I mean, Glenn Hoddle had
Mm-hmm.
a lot. I mean, if you see the David Beckham documentary on Netflix, he absolutely digs Hoddle out for that
Yeah.
'98 squad and the way Hoddle. Does it surprise you the way Glenn Hoddle going from the great player that he was, and he's on my he's made my subs bench. I know Mel
Mm.
obviously on previously with us absolutely loves Glenn Hoddle. What do you think it was about Hoddle as an England manager that didn't quite click? I mean, obviously we had the whole David Beckham thing with the kicking out against Argentina, took us to the '98 World Cup with the Michael Owen goal. Had a good team, albeit for a Sol Campbell disallowed header. We
Yeah.
could have gone further. What do you think it was about Hoddle for England? Because you see Glenn Hoddle coming in as your England manager, tactically knows the game, like Mel said again on the last episode, tactically knows the game. Him and Terry Venables know the game inside out. What
Mm-hmm.
was it that didn't quite work for Glenn Hoddle as England manager, would you say?
It's hard to answer that. I mean, as you say, if it wasn't for the kicking out and the Sol Campbell header, the chances are we might have made the semi final, and who knows from there. I know, obviously, after the '98 World Cup, he did leave under a bit of
Yeah,
controversy because of his whole
the comments he made, yeah.
psychic comments. And
Had
but
his Eileen Drury thing, and he come out with a comment in the paper that disabled people are being punished for something in a
yeah,
previous life. And as soon as you hear
mm,
that, you're just like, oh,
yeah,
Glenn,
it's
yeah,
it's
you're
just
out.
untenable from there, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, again, it goes back to the what ifs, and if he if that goal was allowed by a Campbell, or if Bex didn't have that moment of madness. I think we
That
probably would have gone on and won it.
David Batty knows how
Yes.
to take a penalty.
Well, it does help as well, and you could say that about many England tournaments. If it wasn't for people taking penalties, I mean, the one thing I will say about the '98 squad, obviously, I know we've said about Gaza not being taken into that squad, but again, it comes back to in my background, other side, sorry. Matt Le Tissier was on the form of his life, and he didn't make that squad. I think Darren Anderton took the position in the squad over him, sick note Anderton, and again, when we talk about penalty takers, Matt Le Tissier, I think he missed one in his entire career against Mark Crossley. And yes, I know he hasn't exactly had a post football career of the most stable.
Yeah, he's very outspoken, shall we
Yeah,
say.
but
Do
my
you
God, he was
reckon
a
is that an
footballer.
England problem though? Do you think? Obviously, you look at like Le Tissier, obviously Gaza later had his problems. Do you think that's maybe where we've let ourselves down over the years? I mean, up until this squad, Gareth Southgate's taken Jordan Henderson all the time, probably when he shouldn't have.
Mm,
Pick players on form. I mean, Matt Le Tissier was used to banging. But do you think at the
yeah,
time though? Do you reckon? And I don't. And I mean this all with all respect. I know your dad's a Southampton fan.
yeah.
Fair play to him for yesterday, as much as it pains me. Do you think it was because he was at Southampton? If he
I
had
think
taken,
so.
because he could have moved to, apparently he could have United come in for him. Liverpool wanted him at
Chelsea,
one stage.
yeah,
Chelsea wanted him, and he was pretty much like a Steven Gerrard. He stayed
yeah.
at one club. Ledley King done it. He stayed with Tottenham. Do you think if Matt Le Tissier had gone to Chelsea, Liverpool, United at the time, Sir Alex Ferguson sort of thing, Paul Gascoigne could have done it. He chose Tottenham because Terry Venables bought his family a house. That's the entire reason that he signed for us, as if you read Paul Gascoigne's book. But do you think that if Le Tissier had gone to a Liverpool or a United, he would have had more caps for England?
100%. Especially during the '90s, there was a real big club favoritism. It's not me just saying that. You can look at any of the squads and you can just see it with your own eyes. As you say, my dad's a Saints fan, so I'm used to seeing players of his quality that were in the squad. Even when the likes of Wayne Bridge was coming through at Southampton,
Graham Lasso.
yeah. So you got a lot of even up to the early 2000s, there was a lot of big club bias towards
Where was
the
Theo Walcott when he got called up for England? Was he at
Theo
Southampton or was it
Walcott
Arsenal?
had just moved across to Arsenal, so he
Gotcha.
was literally just signed when Southampton got relegated. But again, I remember watching Theo play. I think it was against Luton for Southampton, and literally he was 17 years old, 16 years old, and pulled them apart. But there's numerous players across the ages you could say the same about. There's um, Razor Ruddock when he was playing West Ham, and a few others that just kind of escaping my attention at the minute. But yeah, there's lots of players out there that easily could have made the England squad if they'd actually followed their direction. I think the one thing that would have got against Matisse in his favour is his fitness. So he's openly come out and said that he was a lazy player. He didn't like training. He'd much rather just get the ball and let that do the talking. So I think those sort of
Do you
things.
think that's where the eras have changed, Matt? Obviously, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. I mean, if you look at the players back then in the 80s and 90s, do you think that's where we are now? I mean,
Absolutely.
Phil Foden gets compared to Paul Gascoigne a lot. The
Mm-hmm.
fitness levels, even in them two now, when you look at it, how much do you think that's changed within the England team? If you look back in the 90s and stuff like that, I don't think football is obviously nowhere near where it is now. I mean, we're picking our all-time England 11, but if you look at players back from the 70s, 80s, early 90s, how many of them realistically, fitness-wise, you mentioned Neil Ruddock there, good centre back, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we'd get near a Premier League team now. I don't
No.
think possibly couldn't even get into a championship side now. Vinnie Jones, the way these guys all played, Matt Le Tissier, Paul Gascoigne was the exception. He was
Mm-hmm.
fit as a fiddle, up and down, box to box, kind of like look at like a Roy Keane. How much do you think the era's impacted to where England are now to what they have been? Because you look at, but then you go back to '66 and we won a World Cup. And albeit, you had the likes of Stanley Matthews, all them guys, Bobby Moore, some of the fittest of Jimmy Greaves obviously got injured, so Hurst had come in. But one of everything you hear, up and down, up and down. But then you fast forward a few eras and you get to the Tissiers, Ruddocks, and you think, oh my God, how first of all did you Ruddock
Mm-hmm.
ever? He wouldn't be a professional footballer now. And
No.
what do you think the difference in eras is to is that why England are doing a little bit better now, should we say? Nearly, we're that close away from winning a major tournament?
Yeah, I mean, there is an argument that can be said. It's not even just the England team. That I've heard it spoken many times. George Best, obviously, what potentially one of the greatest players has ever been. Would he make it in the modern game? And due to his behaviours and his attitude towards the actual game itself and the way the training and everything happens, he probably wouldn't make it at these current levels. The nowadays everyone is just so super fit, and it just makes you think. That's obviously, I think, why there's been more of these cardiac issues because they are at the heart, the height of their fitness, and again, that's going to have repercussions potentially down the line. But it does make you wonder because, as you say, I think players like Bobby Charlton and Bobby Moore, probably not so much Bobby Moore, if I'm being honest with you, because his career tailed off quite quickly. But there's a few players from the 66, 70s eras that could have easily played in the Premier League today and not be out of place. But I think that it all comes down to attitudes, if I'm being honest with you. Gazza, fantastic attitude on the pitch, but he's off the pitch. Shenanigans kind of went against him.
Again, though,
And
does that come back
ultimately,
to eras, though, Matty? Do you think if Paul Gascoigne, say, now was you look at the help footballers get now, there's so much help out there. Back then, and I've read Gascoigne's book, I've read many of books from people that played in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And it was very much, some of them were in the pub like an hour and a half before kickoff.
mm,
Some of them in the bookies, like an hour before kick. Rodney Marsh used to go and have a bet on himself and then try and go back himself to bag hat trick. The era that, do you think if Gascoigne was playing now, and the Premier League is really probably at its height now, shall we say?
mm,
If Paul Gascoigne, I know he played in the Premier League, but it was kind of at the start of it. He's at Everton. I think he went to Burnley for a little bit. Obviously, ended up at Glasgow Rangers. Do you think players, the welfare aspect of it now in football in general, is taken more into consideration? And I think that's across all levels of football. I think there's so much more openness about the way footballers are now. You look at the footballers that have come out and spoke about mental health. Look at Dele Alli, the interview that he
mm.
done, 6 or 7 months ago now. You wouldn't have got that in the 80s and 90s, 70s, say, for argument. Players would have just been like, do you know what? I don't know, here's a bottle of whiskey, there's a bookmakers, that'll do me. I think football's handled differently now, right?
100%. I mean, when you look at nowadays, when the players are in academies, they get media training. They literally get media training like 12 and 13 years old. They're given the awareness, they're given the whole your responsibilities of being a professional player because nowadays, I mean, there's been so many tales of players who have gone off the rails. You only need to look at players like Tony Adams and the issues that he had when he was a professional player. I think they're looked after a lot more. Whereas in the old days, you'd get a £10,000 a week contract. And again, I don't know the details of that, but it sounds like a decent figure. So, yeah, you get, even if it's £2,000 or £3,000 a week, that's a lot of money to a 17, 18-year-old. And, when you've got friends around you that, because you always seem to have hangers on once you become successful, when they kind of tail away when you're not as successful. I think they help you make the incorrect life choices. Whereas nowadays, they're protected by such a bubble, and I think that would
Mm.
help. So yeah, I think probably if Gaz was the 16, 17-year-old now, you'd probably and had the talent that he had, you'd probably be looking at the next Ronaldo.
Yeah, no, 100, mate. Honestly, couldn't agree more, Matty. Let's finish looking at your 11. There it is, there
Yeah.
again. So we've done John Barnes, Paul Gascoigne, Stanley Matthews.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about the forwards then, mate. Michael Owen, a Liverpool fan. He went to Man United. I don't know,
Yeah.
And Gary Lineker, again, doesn't get spoken about as much anymore as he does. He was probably the first striker that I remember. Italian 90, pretty much
Mm.
drag him and Gascoigne dragged us through. Obviously, David Platt getting a last-minute goal against Belgium. A great ball in over his head, volleyed into the top corner. But talk us through the front two there, mate.
Yeah, so as you say, with Lineker, he's probably one of the first players that I remember banging them in for England. So I'm the same as you. Italian United, that's the real first World Cup that I remember. And again, it probably comes down to that, my memories and my thoughts of what a decent player was. But yeah, I mean, if he was to continue beyond the 90 Italian 90 World Cup, would have easily beaten Charlton's goal scoring record. He was only one off. And again, bar for but for a unfortunate couple of penalties from Psycho and Waddle, which Waddle's penalty I still think's all been the fucking world, mate. Honestly, it would have been a World Cup final then. And Owen, look, I know he's not going to make anybody's choice. He's one of these players that, if but for injuries, he probably would have been one of the greatest in my opinion. Ballon d'Or winner at 21. I mean, I remember him in the 99 treble that Liverpool won, and he was absolutely rattling them in for fun. Obviously, made Arsenal look like a pub team at the Millennium Stadium in the FA Cup final. Yeah, it's not hard. Yeah,
a bottling pub team, Maya. Sorry, everyone.
He was just head and shoulders above where everybody else was, hence why he was getting the offers. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I say this as a Liverpool fan, somebody who left the club to explore the other routes that he could potentially get with Real Madrid. It didn't work for him, I get that. And obviously then the whole going to Man United. Yeah, I know it's gonna boil the blood of some Liverpool fans, but
wanted to come back to Liverpool, to be fair to him. If you read his book, yeah. Gerard Houllier was in charge at the time and didn't, was it Rafa?
It was Rafa when
Rafa. I think, Owen, if you read his book, and he's done I think there was something on BT Sport last Euros or World Cup, and he said he contacted Steven Gerrard and was like, have a word, I want to come back. And they, for whatever reason, couldn't figure it out. And that's why he ended up at Newcastle. And he's even admitted he didn't want to go to Newcastle. He wanted to go back to Liverpool. And then the hamstring injuries come, and, obviously it tailed off for him, and then, he had to retire. But scored one of the greatest goals ever, by the way.
Oh, gotcha. Again,
that will go down. If we ever do a show with your top 5 England goals, that's got to be in there, surely.
It's got to be there, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I think the main reason he didn't come back was just because he'd obviously signed for Real Madrid the season before. And I think he signed for £8 million plus Nunes, so 9 million in total, and they wanted at least 10. And it just wasn't going to happen. We wasn't going to spend £10 million on somebody that we'd literally just sold the season before for £8 million. So I get that from a Liverpool side of it. And yeah, as you say, when he went to Newcastle, I think he struggled there because he was obviously playing underneath the shadow of their greatest ever player in Alan Shearer. And it's just a shame, if I'm honest with you, because they could have easily replicated the form that they were starting to have in '98, but again, just wasn't to be, was it? And then obviously going to Man United, again, as I said, it's going to boil the blood of some Liverpool fans, but I get it from a sort of way of trying to force your way back into the England squad. It was obviously with Rooney. He was banging him in for United then. So I guess he could have potentially thought that if he linked up well with Rooney, it might turn the heads of the England selection committee, if you want to say that, and force his way back into the England squad. But yeah, it's one of those, just another one of those what ifs. Yeah, if he had had the opportunity to play uninjured, because he did have a lot of injuries, bless him. But I think that was because he was a boy playing in a man's game and trying to be forced back time and time again. Yeah, again, I've read his book, and I remember him saying that he felt as though he was rushed a bit more than what Steven Gerrard was. There's arguments on both sides back into the first team, but is he going to be the greatest ever Liverpool player? For me, no, because there's a couple other people, but he's got to be up there. He's got to be up there. And for me, I think that's why he should also be considered for my top 11.
No, fair play, mate. It's a good 11. Before we get to mine, and we'll get onto some Dunstable chat, quite a few of you have got in contact. My mate Ken, his 11. Ken is a lot older than me, Matt. I don't know many. Gordon Banks, right back, Nish, Ashley Cole, Bobby Moore, Terry Butcher, Bobby Charlton, Callahan, Robson, Greaves, Hoddle, and Rooney. On the bench, we went old school. We're only allowed 3 subs each. He's gone David Seaman, Harry Kane, and Paul Gascoigne. I mean, Jimmy Greaves is arguably I mean, how again? This is an era thing. I chat to my dad when we talk about me and him used to sit down and talk about England. I'll talk to my uncles and friends that are a lot older than me. I'm sure there's some Dunstable Town fans out there screaming at us like, "How the hell is Jimmy Greaves not in your all-time England team?" Obviously, he got injured, and then if it wasn't for that, Jeff Hurst wouldn't have come in and done what
Yeah.
he done, and the rest is history. Again, though, Matt, it comes back to era. I mean, you talk about injuries. Bobby Robson, wow,
Mm.
arguably one of England's best ever centre midfielders. But
Mm.
again, and this is for Man United, all injuries played his career. You mentioned Owen there. I could go, but Ledley King for me as a Tottenham fan,
Oh, he was a
one
great
of the
player.
greatest centre backs and the
Yeah.
quickest centre backs I've ever seen. Played by injury, but Bobby Robson,
Yeah.
Jimmy Greaves there, Ken's got in his team. Malcolm comes in with 4-3-3. He's gone Banks, Walker, Moore, Terry, Cole, Gascoigne, Lampard, Beckham, Rooney. Alan Shearer hasn't been England's, the all-time leading Premier League goal scorer.
Hmm.
Glenn Hoddle, and on the bench he's gone Stuart Pearce, Harry Kane, Paul Scholes. I mean, Alan Shearer, Matt,
Yeah,
how's how's
agreed. But
how's
I've
how's
got to
he
pick
not?
fault. I've got to pick
Oh,
fault
here we
with
go.
his formation. To quote Mike Bassett, is 4-4 Kim Thorpe 2.
Yeah, we have made this a little bit easier for ourselves and picked 4-4. My mate Adam Cousins has gone for an all Tottenham 11. It's Ian Walker, Gary Mabbott, Justin Edinburgh, Clive Wilson, Dean Austin, Darren Anderton, David Howes, Jason Dezelle, Andy Sinton, Teddy Sheringham, and Chris Armstrong. Yeah, cheers, lads.
Okay, fair days, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Ryan Wells has gone 3-5-2 wing backs essential, he says. Banks, Walker, Moore, Ferdinand, Terry, Cole, Gascoigne, Bobby Charlton, Styles, Hurst, and Kane. Interesting team there, Ryan. I mean,
Hmm.
Gordon Banks seems to be making everyone's team, apart from
Yeah.
Christian. Christian's contacted us. Clements in goal.
Okay.
Walker, Pearce, Moore, Ferdinand, Beckham, Charlton, Gascoigne, Barnes, Shearer, and Teddy Sheringham. All time England.
Yeah, not
Why
done
would?
about
Yeah, I'm not overly sure about that. One I do want to get into before I get to mine. Our very own Julian Nutley messaged this morning. He put his team on the Facebook page. Go and check out the Talk of the Town Facebook page. Good team, but Matty, we need to discuss this. I even commented. I said, Julian, we're definitely discussing this. Bear in mind, this is your all-time England 11. Julian, I love you to death, mate. You are a great guy. Let's go through
that.
his team. There's going to be a big butt in it. Peter Shilton in goal, Walker, Moore, Ferdinand, Cole. Midfield of greatest ever England team. His midfield. Phil Foden, greatest ever England. Paul Gascoigne, Bobby Robson, John Barnes, Scholes, and Lineker. And I don't know if Julian's gone 4-4-2 or he's been on the 4-4 Guinnesses and wines last night, but he's gone Scholes and Lineker up top. On the bench, Wayne Rooney, Glenn Hoddle, and Terry Butcher. I'm assuming he wanted Scholes in midfield, but the four he's got in midfield are Foden, Gascoigne, Robson, and Barnes. I'm guessing Paul Scholes is playing just behind Gary Lineker. I
I'm
mean,
assuming so,
I
yeah.
don't know if Julian's been on the funny fags last night or what he's been doing. But Phil Foden, talk to me, Matt. I did say to Julian we're going to discuss this. Bear in mind, this is the great. Potentially, to be fair, Julian did reply. He's still young. I'm predicting he will be the all-time greatest. But Julian, this
Mhm.
episode is called Your Greatest All-Time England 11.
Yeah.
Um, all joking aside, Matt, Foden gets compared to Paul Gascoigne all the time. Is Phil Foden? Julian's put him in his all-time 11. He's Mystic Julian. He's seen into the future. Um, Phil Foden, do you think he's got the potential to be one of our greatest, or just won the Premier League Player of the Season, scored countless goals? He's very much, I can see why the comparisons are there because Gascoigne used to fly past people like they weren't there. And I think we've missed
Mm.
that as a football team. You look at any football team, that could be from Dunstable all the way to Man City. If you've got a person with the ball at their feet that can go past people, you're in a game and you're very dangerous in that game. Do you think the comparisons, Foden and Gascoigne, that's why Foden's getting compared to the likes of Paul Gascoigne?
I think you're probably right. It doesn't help that he obviously dyed his hair blonde in the last championship, so that comparison's come through even more. But I think if he nails down what his best position is, because even now I don't think people would say what his best position is. Obviously, I know Pep plays him on the right, but people say he should be playing just behind the front two or just in the centre mid. Um, he needs to nail down that position and find out where he could actually develop more. He might be right. I mean, if we was to have this conversation, let's say 5, 6 years, I think we might need to put a date in the calendar just to revisit Julian's comments there. But I'll definitely be having the conversation with him and having a on Friday when I see him about some of his choices there. I mean, yeah, Shilton. I love Shilton, but yeah, and again, he was probably my one of my
Italian
favourite
90, my
goalkeepers
first
growing up.
memory. But
Yeah,
the deflection hit Paul Parker's back and looped over Shilton, but
mhm.
great
But
goalkeeper for England.
if for me, he stops that goal against Maradona, the hand of God one, where he gets out jumped by a 2'6" little run. Albeit I know he used his hand to get it past Shields, but he should just come out and absolutely wallop the bloke ball the whole lot. And then we wouldn't be talking about the hand of God, and then we would be talking about Shilton in my top 11.
Yeah.
But as a result, no, he don't make mine. But yeah, Foden, you never know. Give it 5, 6 years, and we might come back to that, and he might prove us all wrong.
No, Mystic Julian could strike, but it's 5 o'clock somewhere. I'm guessing Julian's been on the old. And our chairman Andrew's been in touch. Didn't send me his full 11. He said to me, Gordon Banks, Matt, you can. I don't even think you can help me out here, mate. Roy McFarland. I'm only 44.
I'm younger than you, mate, so I ain't got a chance.
And Colin Todd at centre backs. Yeah, I don't know. Just contact us.
Okay.
Tweet us at
Thank you for that.
ETFC Pod. But Andrew, honestly, I'm sorry. You'll have to, when I see you next Saturday, you'll have to educate me. But look, again, England teams do come back to errors. And when you grow up and when you watch, I mean, I can go and speak to my nephew who's like 18, 19 now, and his team would pretty much be nowhere near anything that we've got. Let's get on to my 11 then, Matty. Here's my 11 that I've gone for. Again, Gordon Banks in goal. And people say, well, you didn't see him play. I don't think you needed to see Gordon Banks play to know how good the man was. I was torn there at right back because, in my opinion, Carl Walker is so close to being England's greatest ever right back. But I grew up in the era of Gary Neville just playing constantly for England. Never, and again, I think they mentioned this on the Overlap last week. I don't know if anyone watches the Overlap YouTube show with Ian Wright, Roy Keane, Gary Neville, Carragher, and all them, everyone over there. He doesn't appreciate himself that much for what he done for the game. But for me, Gary Neville, I've gone for centre backs of Rio Ferdinand. At the time, he was one of the youngest England defenders to make his debut in 1997. Albeit never played in the Euros for England because when he was meant to, he missed a drugs test for Man United and was banned.
Drug ban, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, he was on a drug ban. So never played in the Euros, played in the World Cup though. As you can see, I've gone for Bobby Moore. I mean, enough said. You don't have to have been around to know what a great player. I've watched the Sky documentaries. If you haven't watched it, go and watch the documentary on Bobby Moore. And like Matt touched on earlier, it's a shame the way his career kind of tailed off and the way obviously his life was cut short. Stuart Pearce at left back, it was touch and go between him and Ashley Cole. I've kind of gone old school. I love Stuart Pearce purely because of the Willstone connection growing up. I just think Stuart Pearce for England. If you had to define England, just put a player down and say cut him open, he's going to bleed 3 lines. For me, Stuart Pearce. I've gone for a midfield of David Beckham on the right again. Absolutely splits opinion when it comes to football fans. I mean, I speak to, he's in my 11 of everything. I think he's he doesn't need to fly past people. We talk about Paul Gascoigne. David Beckham's probably got the best delivery of a football I think I've ever seen. As you can see there as well, I've gone for Gaza, Bobby Charlton, Stanley Matthews on the left, and Lineker and Super Harry Kane up front. What do you think of that, Matty?
Yeah, I've got problems.
Oh, here we go. This will be good. I know you've got. Yeah, are we talking problems or football?
I mean, I like post his football career. I actually do like Gary Neville. He's actually a very interesting person. I think obviously you could say the same about why I've chosen Phil Neal because he basically was in one of the greatest teams there's ever been. He doesn't make my right back though. I think Beckham, I think he was good. I wouldn't play him over Stanley Matthews on the right hand side. I know you put Matthews on the left.
Stanley Matthews on the left, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're trying to find that square square
Square
peg in
peg,
a
round
round
hole.
hole,
It's England. It's
mate.
what we do. The thing is, I've done, mate. Honestly, I spent way too long. You can't really see it, everyone, but I've got a whole book for. I didn't have a life yesterday. I was going strolling through, and I was writing down all the caps. I mean, Gary Neville
Yeah,
played 95 to 2007. Stanley Matthews, 1934 to 1957,
yeah.
played for
With
England.
obviously a 6 year hiatus
With
in
a
the middle,
six,
don't
yeah,
forget.
exactly. With a tiny, there was a little bit something going on. There was a little
Bit of a
6 year,
scuffle.
bit of a scuffle going on. Bobby Charlton played from 58 to 70. Yeah, I mean, but for me though, Gary Neville for me just, he was a bit like Pierce. I didn't think he ever let England down, and it's
Mm,
pretty much until Carl Walker now. And obviously I grew up maybe Paul Parker, and then we flitted around at right back. I think Rob Jones was in, Liverpool man. Rob Jones was in at right
yeah,
back for a little bit. And then once Gary Neville got through that youth system at United, pretty much that whole class of was it 98? Was the class of 96? Whatever it was, it's on the TV now, the documentary.
yeah.
So you think you had Beckham, Scholes, but Gary Neville, all of them were picked for England. Probably Butt wasn't picked as much because you grew up with Gerrard and Lampard and stuff like that. But for me, Gary Neville at the time wasn't really anyone else that you could slot in at right back. I know, obviously, Glenn Johnson come on later. You had Michael Richards and Carl Walker. Now, for me,
Yeah.
I was that close to put. I've got him in my honorary mentions down here that I've wrote. I've got Carl Walker. I've also got like Glenn Hoddle, Tony Adams, Sol Campbell, John Barnes, David Seaman, Jack Charlton, Peter Shilton, Jimmy Greaves. Didn't get in my 11. A lot of people, how are you putting Harry? I think you were saying earlier about Phil Foden. I think Harry Kane is going to go down as the greatest goal scorer this country's ever seen.
Oh,
Ever.
100%. I think you're right there, mate. I mean, yeah, I think, does he already lead the list up now?
For England,
Yeah.
yes, he broke Jimmy Greaves' record not so long ago.
Uh-huh.
I just think by the time it's all said and done, I still think he'll come back to the Premier League and break Alan Shearer's record. And this is me.
Mm.
Oh, you're a Tottenham fan. You're bound to say that. But I genuinely think for natural finishing, I don't want any. I know he missed a penalty for England, and that who hasn't missed a penalty for England? Let's be honest. I just think he's going to go down as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, goal scorer that I will have seen when it's all said and done, Matty, for me and you, and we're up there doing podcasts in heaven. I think Harry Kane will go down one as the greatest all-time England goal scorers.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's 30 now, so he's got this European Championship ahead of him. I think because, again, it goes back to the fitness of the players. He's got one more World Cup in him at the very least. So he's got ample opportunity to add to his already. It's 62 goals he's scored for England so far. It's an impressive tally. I mean, yeah, he does make my honourable mentions, as does Psycho. Him scoring that goal at Euro '96, and Terry Butcher with his red England shirt, rather than his white England shirt. Those are the two images that I remember when I was younger, growing up, of kind of what antipified what an England player should be: the grit, the desire, and everything like that. But yeah, Harry Kane makes mine. Greavesy, yeah, I think you've obviously touched on it. He didn't make the World Cup final due to injury, and but if he was fit, he would have been playing. And without being funny, if he was in the same position as what Hurst was, we'd be talking about him day in day out, and he would have easily made the top 11. Yeah, again, I think his injuries just kind of
Jeff Hurst
unfortunately
isn't in our teams, and he won us the World Cup pretty much.
absolutely, yeah. England hat trick, only
But to be
England
fair,
players
like we
score
did
hats
say
in
at
the
the start of
final.
the show, we could have just picked the 66 team and gone, statistically, they are the greatest England team of all time.
Yeah,
They won us the World Cup. Matty, let's end today's episode talking some Dunstable Town, my friend. Obviously, Steve and the boys released the pre-season fixtures. Here they are for everyone that's watching on YouTube. We start on the 2nd of July. We are at home to Sarah. The 6th of July, we are at home to Ardley. 9th of July, Kings Langley is going to be at a neutral venue somewhere. The 13th of July, we entertain our friends at Risborough Rangers. Be good to see them. The Aaron Bateman Memorial Game, Hertford Town is on the 16th of July. Really looking forward to that one. Codicott away on the 20th of July, and we finish on the 23rd of July against our old nemesis. Still have nightmares about this place, Matty, but we're at home to British Airways the week before the season starts on the 27th. Good pre-season schedule in your books, Matty. I think there's some Kings Langley will be a test, Risbury will be a test, Hertford for various reasons. That's going to be a great game. I think that's a solid pre-season, mate.
Oh, 100%. I mean, there's some clubs there of different levels. So obviously we've got some step 4, step 5, and step 6. Obviously, you can't face off against your fellow Spartan step 5 clubs, which is why I'm kind of pleased that we've got Risborough in there and Ardley. I actually quite like Ardley considering their how they cheated us out of 2 points. They didn't. It was a ref, but never mind.
Oh,
And as you say again, against British Airways. Yeah, again, I want to exercise some demons of playing them. But
so many
to be
bad
fair to
memories.
them, they've literally just come up to step 5, so it'd be good to see what sort of standard is coming up through from step 6. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to these games. Really looking forward to getting back down at Creasy Park and having the lads play on the pitch as soon as. What do you think of them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad most of them are at home. That's
Yeah.
during pre-season. I mean, now since Bedfordshire, the FA have taken over Creasy, obviously we're getting a lot more games on the main pitch, which I think, as much as I love watching any football, I found it quite difficult last season watching behind the cage on AP1. I think I watched the Hitchin game. We were down on AP1, and I
Yeah.
know we've got maybe a game up on AP2. I'm pleased most of the friendlies are on the main pitch. But yeah, I mean, if we look again there, we've got some. Yeah, I think we've got some really good fixtures, mate. I mean, like you say, Kings Langley will be a test. Be
Very
good to
good test. Yeah.
test ourselves against Kings Langley. Good to see Risborough when they were with us 2 seasons ago
Well,
in our league.
When you think Mark Jones has literally just taken over, and former
Literally.
Banbury
Mm.
Oxford manager, so I think that will be a real test to see what sort of standard that he's bringing into it. Because if we want to progress far in the FA Vars and the FA Cup, that might be someone that we face. The game I'm really interested in is the Codicott game. I get they're in step 7. They ain't going to be no slouches. They're the team that beat Real Bedford in the Gladwish Trophy this season. So you don't just do that by fluke.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see obviously how, like Steve said in his interview, and I've spoke to him off air as well. The team that starts pre-season is normally never the team you have come the end of August, September. It's going to be interesting to see how he builds his squad now. Obviously, we don't know. Obviously, just while we're here, actually, I need to mention Ethan obviously come out on social media in the past couple of days and said he's leaving the club. He joins Alfie Osborne in departing Dunstable Town. I can't speak highly enough of Ethan. I've said this many times. I've been a big fan of his. We thank him for his service at Dunstable Town. Lovely family, great kid. I'm going to be really interested to see where he goes, and Tolu as well. Tolu obviously
Yeah.
came out and announced that he's leaving Dunstable Town. 2 great lads. So I'm really, that you can kind of sit back now, and I'm going to be so interested to see where their football career goes. Do they make it conference? Do they go higher? I mean, you never really know in football. I've looked around sometimes at footballers and you think, wow, you've gone where I didn't think you'd go. But when you look at an Ethan and a Tolu, young lads, raw talent, someone like Ethan, don't never see him lose head up, by the way. Tolu, raw pace to burn. Obviously, Joe converted him into like a wing back kind of position last year. I've said it thousands of times. Left mid all day long for me, Tolu. But yeah, great servants for the club, Matt. I wish them nothing but success. But moving forward, going to be interesting to see how Steve and the boys build the squad now. And that's where I think sometimes at pre-season you just turn up because it's football to watch. Now I'm really like when the new manager comes in and we're kind of going to be rebuilding our squad quite a bit, to be fair. But I'm sure Steve and the boys, Rob and Liam, know what they're doing. I'm going to be turning up to pre-season actually generally, and I'm going to go to training. Yes, I am that guy. But it's going to be interesting, right, Matt, to see how we build coming with July 27th is our first league game. Interesting to see what Steve does between now and then.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's only a few more weeks until they start the pre-season training, which I'm really looking forward to getting down and seeing myself. And yes, on that side as well. I think Jack actually mentioned she wanted to come down as well, so
Wow.
she's probably getting invested as well. Yeah, but I just want to echo your comments for Ethan and Tolu. If I'm being honest with you, if I see them go to another Step 5 club, I'll be very disappointed in them. I think they got bags of potential that could easily walk into a step 4, step 3 team next season. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where their journey ends up. But yeah, it gives other people an opportunity to put on the blue shirts at Dunstable and show what they can do for the club moving forward. So yeah, can't wait. I've heard names bouncing around. I'm not obviously going to say on a podcast, and the names I'm hearing, I'm like, wow, yeah, if we can get these players over the line, I think we'll have a pretty successful season. So looking forward to it,
Yes,
buddy.
I, like you, have heard a few interesting names bandied around, and yep, we're not going to mention on the show. But yeah, I think Steve is working tirelessly. Every time I speak to him, he's either off his phone or he's making phone calls
Mhm.
or he's going to visit players. You know, he's working really, really hard. I mean, like we say, it's his first job, manager. He's come in from being coach at Harpen, and again, and we said many times he could have just sat there, and all of them, Rob and Liam, they all could have just stayed
Mhm.
there and gone right. We're going to try and get promoted with Harpen, and I say fair play
Mhm.
to them for coming on and taking the role at Dunstable. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what preseason training brings, to see what the preseason schedule brings. Some, like I just said, there's some really good games. Could be really interested. Matty, I know you're not around next Saturday. We are, for everyone, we are filming some really cool content this coming Saturday down at Creasy Park, 9 a.m. I'm down there with Brad and a few of the other guys. We're just going to talk about the community work that Dunstable Town are doing and won an award for the non-league paper Community Club of the Year. Matty, I know you're not around this weekend, so let's get your thoughts on it briefly, just while we wrap up this episode today. Dunstable Town Community Club of the Year. Just explain to us what that entailed with the non-league newspaper, with the award. We're going to go down and we're going to get way into this on Saturday. I'm down at Creasy Park
Yeah.
doing some filming on Saturday. But what did it mean to you, mate? Again, we briefly touched on it on the last episode. I know the work that you and Andrew and Peter and Ian and Julian and Lee and everyone puts in. So many people to name that, people just see us on a Saturday, or I just hit record and we do this. So much more goes into this football club.
Agreed. Yeah, as you say, we've set the non-league awards last week before. Don't forget to pick up your non-league paper. I think it's still available today, and you can read all about what the award was for. But yeah, I just wanted to obviously thank the non-league paper and everybody who nominated us and made us the national community club of the year. And I think that's it's such recognition for the club. We obviously started off a few seasons ago and turned ourselves into a community benefit society club with the remit to try and improve mental health for the people of Dunstable and beyond. And I think we are really starting to nail that now, not just through our mental health groups, which I think touch between 200 and 300 people a month. But obviously, all of our walking football aspects that we do. So we have various different walking football for different abilities. And we don't judge people. They can play walking football competitively. They can come just have a kick about. We have we play at tournaments now, and that's no thank absolutely down to the hard work of people like Ian and all his helpers with the walking football. We now run a dementia walking football. So for those who haven't seen that, every Thursday I think it is, in association with Tibbs, who are a great cause, local cause. We get together and just have people who are starting to have some early onset dementia, give them the opportunity just to have a bit of a kick about, a bit of a game of football. It was something that Andrew mentioned to me recently about music is obviously quite powerful because it reinvigorates the memory, but so does things like sport. So when people are playing and they're struggling with to remember various aspects, and then you can see them rolling back the years and still able to pass the football around. I honestly think it helps, and to see the recognition that we've received, I think testament to everybody that are doing everything they can. As I say, mental health groups, that we are tackling loneliness, because loneliness can lead to mental health issues as well. So we have our Chums and Crumbs group that meet in association with the Everyday Active, the leisure centre within Dunstable, and that's all of this has been helped out by our community partners. So Asda's helped us with some funding, as has the co-op. There's many people that help us create these groups, and without wanting to call one person out or two people out, I'm actually going to call out. But firstly, Ian for all his hard work. I know I've mentioned before, but he does so much in the background. But this has all started by just a thought of how can we make Dunstable Town a sustainable club moving forward. And yeah, Andrew has to take some plaudits. I know he doesn't like taking the plaudits, but yeah, it was his original idea to convert us into a community benefit society. And there's been so many people helping us get this up and running. I can, Neil, Julian, Lee. There's so many people, but Andrew was the person with the forethought to say this is the way that we need to go, and I back him 100%. And honestly, it's so. I'm sorry to keep going on about it, but I'm so proud to be associated with my hometown club, which is now doing more than just playing football on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, mate. Very well said, mate. Very well said. Yeah, it's just to echo what you said there, mate. Finish up the episode. I think it's great work what the club do. We're going to be moving forward in the right direction on the football pitch. Off it, we're absolutely flying, mate, and that's testament to you guys and everyone behind the scenes that what you do. And like I say, I know so much goes on during the week. We're going to get down to Creasy Park this coming Saturday. I'm down there doing loads of filming. We're going to be interviewing all sorts of people about the community work. So we're not just all about the Euros and Dunstable. We're going to be getting out to doing more than just football with this show, with this YouTube channel, with our podcast. We're going to be meeting people and speaking to them this weekend. I plan on doing a little bit with the Walking Football as well myself, that we're going to be doing some great content before we get back to pre-season and football. But Matty, good to sit down and talk all-time England 11. I will allow you to have that Southampton background for one episode and one episode only, because it's for your dad. Never do it again. But if you want to check us out on social media, you can find us on Twitter at DTFC Pod. Go onto YouTube, go into Dunstable Town FC, click on DTFC TV, hit subscribe. I've set a challenge of getting 1,000 subscribers if we can by the first league game. Brad is doing an absolute fantastic job. All me and Matt have got to do is hit record. Brad does everything else. Full credit to him. But Matty will be back later on next week to talk more England, more Dunstable Town community work. But ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Talk of the Town podcast. I've been your host, Andy Burrows. Till next time, everybody, up the Mighty Blues.